Hi, this is Eyisegun again. Welcome to another broadcast. And today I just want to talk about something entitled Taking the Right Stand in the Face of Adversity. I was thinking the other day and I remembered a few things that I'd encountered along my journey in life. And it's given birth and given rise to this video. You know, the truth about life is that at some stage in life, we're going to be faced with um, difficulties that require responses. And this has nothing to do with whether you're a Christian or not. Um, every human being will have to respond um, to certain things that they would face in the journey of life. It's just a fact of life, and there's no escaping it. But today, I really just want to speak to us Christians, um, because it's important that when we're faced with hardcore challenges, that we take the right stand. I'm going to start off by telling us a story. Going to tell you two stories. One story is mine, and the first one is not going to be mine, and the second one is. And the reason why I like to add the personal testimonies is I just believe that you're not really competent enough to speak on any area uh, of the Word of God if you haven't had the experience. If what you're sharing is not tried, proven, and tested in your own existence, then your revelation of that thing is not complete. You may have read about it, but you don't know it by experience, and that's why I share. Um, a few years ago, I went to. I was invited to minister in a church um, in Aberdeen, and it's the custom that if you're a guest minister, you have to sit in the front beside the pastor and all of that sort of stuff. And anyway, on this day I had to sit in the front, and I say I had to because normally I don't, I wouldn't, but on this day I had to, and I did my thing. I finished, and I came back and I sat down, and they had a Thanksgiving. A lady came to the front. She took the mic and she talked a bit. She thanks the pastor for his support and thanks these different groups of people. And it transpired from the conversation from her little speech that she was the worship leader of the church. She had gone to Nigeria to get married, and this was her first Sunday back, and there was a Thanksgiving and all of that. The husband also came to join her at the pulpit, and he spoke very, very briefly. And I very quickly formed two opinions. One, he obviously wasn't a member of that church, and two, I didn't think he was a Christian in the slightest. But hey, I'm not judging, but I just formed that opinion, and God knows why. But that's what I did. And and then obviously after the speeches and everything, there were a few songs, and people would come to the front and rejoice with them. And I noticed that a particular lady who sat in the choir section didn't come out. Everybody from the choir section came out except for this lady, and I noted that, and she didn't she wasn't smiling. She wasn't stony faced, but she was very straight faced through everything. And I thought, oh, okay, that's strange. And then the pastor takes the mic. He's got to pray for them, and he went out there and he was, giving it, uh, he was going large, as they say, in prayer. He was really, really going for it, and all I could hear is this. I know Francis Sinatra has a song that sounds something like this, but all I could hear in my head was, and it was just this one line that was going around in my head. There will be trouble ahead. And that was all. I mean, I know Frank Sinatra has done a song, and there's something else that follows that, but all I could hear is there will be trouble ahead. And I was watching how the pastor I was thinking to myself, the pastor is really praying hard, and I just couldn't. I said, God, you know what? Number one, I'm not going to say anything uh, because I just don't want to break the pastor's heart. He's sweating now, and I don't want to say after the prayer that after all of that long, hard, sweaty prayer, that there's something wrong with this union. Now, people who know me know that I'm quite prophetic in that way and everything. But I had gone there to minister, I'd done my job, and I was just waiting for the end of the service and then to be discharged. So I wasn't going to say anything to the pastor, but it was in my head, and I was certain that there was something wrong with that union. I had no iota of a doubt in my heart. Anyway, service is finished and the pastor has to dash off to some other thing, and so we couldn't go for the refreshments or whatever it is they do with ministers after the service. A particular lady was assigned to me to take me for a meal somewhere, and it was this lady who didn't get up in the choir to rejoice with the newlyweds. We got to wherever we were going, parked the car, had to walk a bit of a distance to get to the restaurant. But this issue of these people was burning in my heart. And at some point I said, look, madam, don't be annoyed, but I've got to ask you a question. What do you think about these people who got married today? What do you think about that union? And she says, oh, that she doesn't agree with it, that she doesn't think they should have gotten married. Oh, okay. That took me by surprise because that's not the response I was expecting. Then I asked, I said, what does your pastor think about it? He says, well, pastor told them not to get married, but she insisted that she wanted to go ahead, And I said, okay. And then I asked her why she didn't go out and rejoice with them. I said, is this the reason why you didn't go? She says, no, that she feels bad that they're married. She feels partly responsible for them being married, and she feels guilty about it, and she doesn't agree with it. And why do you feel guilty? Anyway, she proceeds to tell me this story about when she, the lady I was with, was a member of another church. By her account, she says she wasn't properly born again, but she used to attend this church regularly, and she started dating a guy in the church. And they'd been dating for about 2 to 3 years, and she decided she wanted to have a child. They hadn't married, but she wanted a child. And throughout the third year, she was trying to get pregnant and nothing happened. And then the fourth year and nothing happened, or I think she had miscarriage and then nothing happened. And she became very concerned that there was something wrong with her. And it was so much of a concern that one day she went to work and she was lamenting to her colleagues at work. Whereupon a particular colleague said, look, I know somebody who can deal with this sort of stuff. I'll give you his number. Call this chap. You don't have a problem. He'll sort you out and you'll have a child. So she collects a number and she has to call this chap who is in Nigeria. Anyway, the long and short is she went to Nigeria, and when she went there, she said they went to one place in the night and the man cooked something in a pot or something and asked her to eat. She ate it and she said she thought she was going to die, that she was sick for God knows how many days. And then after the whole period in which she was ill and she recovered, she was asked in the company of other women to go somewhere very early in the morning or in the dead of night and have a bath naked by one river or something. And she came back and she had a child. Of course, subsequent to having a child, the relationship fell apart. She lost her house. I think she lost her job. Then she lost her house, and quite a few things just went wrong, But she had the child. Another thing is that there were some foods that she used to eat before that she was forbidden. She was forbidden from eating, and not taking the things seriously. She came back and tried to eat those same things, and she nearly died. And that was that. And so in this time, she had switched church to the church where I now met her. And she had, in her words, given her life to Christ properly and all of that. Now, the worship leader, from time to time will call and lament the lack of a husband, the lack of a marriage and all of that. And, and she used to go on and on about it. And when the lady turned 35, which was the worship leader, she called this woman I was with and really, really went into this whole lamentation of woe is me, I'm not married and all of that. In that lamentation, she talked about a guy she had dated for 7 years who left her for her cousin and was living with the cousin and had been living with the cousin for 3 years. And she felt that the man could not come and spend that kind of time in her life and go just like that. Those were her words, just like that. And the lady I was with felt particularly sorry for her and gave her the number of the man in Nigeria. She went off to the Nigeria, did whatever was required of her whilst she was there. And upon her return, this chap who's been with her cousin for 3 years just comes one morning and says, "Oh, I want to marry you." And they got married. And so that's, how she got married. Then I asked if the pastor was aware of these stories, and she said no. Now, I wasn't going to say anything to anybody, not my business to say anything. And I'm telling this story not to invite criticism or condemnation or judgment, but to show how when people are faced with a challenge or difficulty, they can easily make a bad choice and take an alternative route because they think God's not coming through or doing anything. Now, I don't condone this sort of thing, but I can understand how people get to that point, especially in this our faith age, where if things are not happening in your life, it's either you don't have faith in God, or God is not with you, or you're not walking right before God, or you're not serving God well, that sort of thing. And so people are under pressure to produce results, and they might feel the need to go in another direction, a direction contrary to Christ, to get those results produced if these results are not coming thick and fast enough in Christ. And that's what happens to a lot of people. And so she made that choice. Interesting is that a lot of people came out, they rejoiced with her and everything, and they wouldn't have known the true source of her testimony, if you want to call it. Yeah, it's a testimony, whichever way, And so we see people, Christians, who, when they're in difficulty, take an antichrist position. I'm not calling them antichrist, but they take an antichrist position, or they pursue an antichrist pathway, And contrary to the understanding that it's all about getting the result, the husband, the wife, the car, the money, and all of those sort of things, sometimes when we're faced with a difficulty and God doesn't seem to be coming through, or maybe he never does come through in the way we think he should, the prize might not be, and the victory might be, in your maintaining a righteous stand in him, when you could very easily have gone a different way. Sometimes that in itself is the prize. I mean, if you look at the story of Job, he lost his businesses, then he lost his children, he lost everything. And then on top of that, he was afflicted in his body. And his wife says, "Look, man, you need to curse God and die. This thing isn't working for you. Obviously, God is not with you. Look at your life. I mean, how do you come back from this? You can't recover from this. In fact, I don't think you're going to, even if you recovered from the illness, you lost all your children in one day, you lost everything you have. Man, you need to die. Curse God and die." And Job just says no. He just refuses to. But if we look at the beginning, we find that God submitted him to these things, volunteered him. He said to Satan, "Have you considered my servant Job?" And allowed Satan to afflict him, except for taking his life, to prove the loyalty of Job's heart to God. So yes, he recovered, and God gave him double the number of children he left, and probably double the number of businesses or whatever it is he'd lost, apart from the children. But he was still put forward for testing, and the test was the loyalty of his heart. And so the victory was not what he recovered. The victory was the fact that he was found to be loyal to God in the end. And so the victory is not always about the material things and the marriage and the husband and the money and the business. No. It's the righteous stand and the right stand that we take when faced with a difficulty. Which brings me to me. A number of years ago now, I was under severe financial pressure, and I was struggling. you know. Just in fact, it was bad. You know, was bad. And it wasn't bad that I couldn't eat and I couldn't wear clothes or anything, but you know, by my standards, it was bad. You know, and I had a number of occasions uh, being approached by people I know who are successful in their businesses, very successful and very phenomenally wealthy uh, for their age, very, very wealthy, young and wealthy people. And they'd say to me, they'd tried to invite me to join a secret society or cult or something, you know. And in fact, one tried to initiate me. He wanted me to try to take me through the initiation ritual, you know. And they'd say all of these things to me and say, look, if you do this, you know, all your financial worries will be, you know, you'll never have a financial worry for the rest of your natural life and all of that sort of stuff. And then when I'd listen to everything they'd have to say, and in one particular occasion, when he got to the part where he wanted, because I was in a private place with him, he wanted me to do the initiation stuff. I just asked him the question. I said, will Christ, you know, be happy with this? And then he left me alone. And every time this thing sort of came up, I would ask the question, would Christ be happy? And they would leave me alone, you know. And so I've had the opportunity to take a shortcut to go down an anti-Christ route, being in Christ, you know, to get a result. But I chose not to. I chose to continue to suffer, and I did, because I wasn't going to compromise my stand. I had made up my mind a long time ago that I was going to live and die by Christ. If I had to go any other way to get results or to get some things done in my life, then I could no longer follow Christ, and he wasn't worth following, and I'd be the first person to preach against him. Anyway, I've got to end it here because I don't want this video to be too long, and I will finish up in a subsequent video. Shalom.